issue facing our country. Mr. Meijer.
Thank you to my dear friend from Texas, and thank you, Madam Speaker. You know, when I was in middle school, we had a textbook for U.S. government, and it showed our debt. And the line went up, the line went down over administrations. It spiked in World War II. It was coming down in the 90s. And this is the debt, mind you, not the deficit, the debt. And there was a little dotted line anticipating we would have the debt fully paid off by, I think, 2002. Now, some things got in the way around the turn of the millennium, and that number has spiked, and now we are at those World War II highs. And as many of my colleagues have alluded to, this is a bipartisan affliction. Deficit spending knows no party preference. But the idea that in just a few short years we tripled that debt, well, added 50%, went from 20 trillion to 30 trillion, 5 trillion of that in the last 2 years alone. And now, we were facing the COVID-19 pandemic. Those were dark and frightening days. And this body reacted swiftly, reacted in good faith. And yet that good faith became a good excuse to just keep spending, keep going. And that catches up, right? The inflation we're experiencing right now has many fathers. You have the challenges of unwinding over a decade of quantitative easing and that money printer just rolling on and on. We have the American Rescue Plan, which many of us in this body, probably many of us in here behind me tonight, were warning about the inflationary impacts that were dismissed at the time, except for a few brave economists on the left. Larry Summers was pointing that out. But we just kept going. And now the American people, the consumers, are feeling that impact, right? They see it every time they drive past the gas station. I just filled up my gas tank. For the first time, it cost me over $100. That has never been the case, and I know many who have more than a 20-gallon tank are experiencing that even worse. And the question on behalf of constituents we talk to is, what are you going to do? What are you going to do in Congress about this? And the challenge is that inflation, debt spending, these are challenging issues, right? You can't put the genie back in the bottle. Maybe we could accelerate the creation of a time machine and go back and show what occurred and what the consequences were of those policies. Come back into this body, to February of 2021 with the American Rescue Plan, or even go back to when that middle school textbook I had was written, showing the dangers. But, just in the time I've been here, our cost to service the debt, that 10-year Treasury bond, has tripled in terms of what that impact will be on us fiscally. And we talk about the budgets that we pass, our omnibus spending. That's only a third of how much money is going out the door. So I applaud my colleagues who are working on the Trust Act and other efforts to come to some bipartisan consensus, because this will be something that impacts all generations. I'm acutely aware of that, looking at young families and the burden this is putting on them, and just how much that debt very rapidly is going to be a long-term drag on our fiscal growth, on our economic vitality that underpins our standing in the world and our position as a superpower. So if we don't get that house in order and get it in order fast and start laying the groundwork, it doesn't have to be bold right away. We'll need to be bold eventually. But by golly, we need to start heading down the right path, and that right path soon. I yield back the remainder of my time.